One of the most common questions that I receive on every video that I ever post is, why did I choose to get the FUT procedure instead of the FUE procedure? And today I'd like to formally answer that question because I'm really just tired of answering it in the comment section. Really quickly guys, if you don't know about this channel, it's your first time seeing it, my name is DJ. I'm the founder of Keratin Brotherhood. And Keratin Brotherhood was created to help guys build their confidence in their hair loss through transparency, empathy, and positivity. This channel came from my own pain of losing my hair. I have a lot of experience dealing with hair loss, guys. And so in today's video, what I really want to do is I want to talk about why I chose FUT over FUE, why I chose South Korea over maybe Turkey or India or even domestically in the United States. You know, why did I not go back for a second procedure? I am 100% sure and certain that the hair transplant was one of the best decisions that I made for myself. You may disagree with me, but it doesn't matter because it was my choice to make. Same for you if you're watching this video and you're contemplating hair transplants. At the end of the day, guys, it's your decision to make. Don't listen to anybody else tell you otherwise, okay? Being a Norwood 6 and understanding that there's a lot of ground to cover, I had to consider whether I wanted to go with the FUT or the FUE. If you guys aren't familiar with these two, the FUT is what I got. That's like the strip scar that goes all the way around the head. And this is compared to the FUE procedure where they extract, or rather they punch out individual or groups of hair follicles, like plucking plants from a garden basically. And you end up with no linear scar, which is how they advertise it, market it rather. But the reality is you still have scars. There's a lot of guys on YouTube who talk about their FUE procedure. You can still see the pinpoint scars on the back of the head. So it's not a scarless procedure. It's still there. Of course, it's easier to conceal by growing out your hair. Now, the main draw for an FUT procedure is price. I chose FUT because the price points were different by like $4,000 to $7,000. As a matter of fact, if you look at these emails here, I was looking for consultations in South Korea, and so I received consultation results from a few clinics, and just the price comparison between an FUE and an FUT, dude, we're talking like a lot of money is the difference. Now, when we talk about FUT, not only is it cheaper than FUE, but you can get a lot more hairs in lesser time than FUE. And these 2 points were the draw for me. Like I said, I was Norwood 6, Norwood 7, guys. I had just nothing. There was just nothing there. And so they had to move a lot of hairs around. And the doctor even told me, he was like, that's gonna take like, 12 hours if we do an FUE. And, it just can't happen in one procedure because, fatigue sets in for the surgeons, and, you don't want the quality of the work to decrease as they try to push past 6 to 8 hours of surgery. So that came up. It's like, it's not gonna be one procedure. You're gonna have to come back for the second procedure. At the time, I was getting ready to move to another city. I was living in Korea, and I was getting ready to move to Seoul, and I didn't really have time to say, finagle in a second procedure because I was going to start grad school in Seoul, and I needed to really be focused on the books. They were like, well, we can do it all, but FUT would take about 6 to 8 hours, one session, and it would be done. That's what I signed up for. So when you're talking about the two procedures, guys, understand that FUT is going to be faster, it's going to be cheaper, and in most cases, you're going to be able to harvest more hairs. Now, there's a couple other factors that come in, like how many donor or how great the donor site is, how many hairs are there, how much laxicity is in the scalp. Now, understand, I was in South Korea at the time. And so some of these surgeons had never even touched a black guy's head before. A black guy's hair is just different. It's curlier or it's wavier than, for example, Caucasian or Asian hair. Also, density it tends to be less than other races. Black people tend to have less density, but because of the curliness or the kinkiness of our hair, we have, visually, it looks more dense. And so when it comes to things like FUE, you have to consider the way the hair grows out of the scalp. So if this is your scalp, whereas a Caucasian's hair would probably grow out straight from the root like this, or an Asian's hair would grow straight from the root like this, underneath, for a black person, the root is actually, it's curled, it's kinked. And so it comes out at an angle and it may exit at an opposite angle. When they go to punch out that hair or that group of hairs with the FUE tools, they run the risk of cutting or severing the hair from the actual bulb, like the black part at the bottom of the hair, they run the risk of cutting that. It's called transection. And my hair is not super curly. Actually, it's not curly at all. It's wavy, but I didn't want to run the risk of them transecting hairs. If you transect the hair follicle, that follicle is done. All right, it can't be used. It's not going to grow back either because you already punched it out. Okay, so the survival rate for a lot of the FUE hairs for black guys tends to be lower compared to the FUE procedure, where you're taking out the whole strip and you can get in there and easily see each individual group of follicles, and then they slice them off with a scalpel, and it's easier to dissect them that way. Most of the surgeons that I talked to said they needed about 5,000 to 6,000 hairs. That's about 2,800 to 3,000 grafts. Guys, that's a lot of hair, okay? So I don't want to waste hairs by running the risk of them getting transected, and then I can't use them. I still gotta pay for it, but I can't use them. I didn't want to deal with that. And so I just was like, you know what, let's just go with FUT. That was another reason why I pushed for the FUT. One of the main questions that I get, or the comments that I get, is about the scar. If you get an FUT procedure, guys, you're gonna have a scar. It's unavoidable. It's unavoidable. There are some guys who hair loss, maybe they're like a Norwood 2 or 3, and they just need a little bit of coverage on the hairline. Maybe they got the M going on, or they got a bit of thinning, and so they're able to grow out the rest of their hair, and it lays over the scar, so you can't see the scar. You're able to conceal it. Unfortunately, I don't have enough density for that, and just the way that my hair grows out, like if I grow my hair out, you'll still see the scar. You'll see the thinness, because the hair is just, if this is the scar, you're just putting hair in front of it like this. You can still see it between the hairs. Plus, there's an indent. So if you look closely at my scar, you'll see that there is like an indentation, or like a raised section where the scar is. That's also visible on my hair type, because my hair tends to just lay down. I've actually tried growing out my hair before and covering up my thin spot on the crown where I didn't have any hair transplanted with hair fibers. It just looked really, really unnatural, and I didn't like it. So when you guys see me and I'm rocking the fade, and since the transplant, it just fits better. I do a bit of concealing with the eyebrow pen and stuff, and these days I am considering going for SMP for the scar. I know a lot of guys have mentioned I should go for SMP. It's about money again. I have a daughter, I have a family. I'm trying to save for my future, I'm trying to buy a house, I'm trying to do a lot of things, start a business. SMP is not that high on my list of things that I need to do. So for all of you who are like, oh, you should get SMP, I appreciate the advice and I appreciate the support, but my priorities for SMP don't seem to be as high as your priorities for SMP. So that's the reason why I haven't done it yet. The next thing I want to talk about is why I got my hair transplant in South Korea, when other places like Mexico, Turkey, and India are far cheaper or far less expensive. And that's including airfare. I mean, they'll give you the whole package. And I think you can go to Turkey or India, is it? And you can get airfare, lodging, hair transplant, maybe some meals included, and they'll put it like a package deal for like, $5,000 or $6,000. That's crazy. Why did I get it in South Korea? Well, one, I was already there. I was already in South Korea. I lived there for like 7 years almost. So, I didn't have to worry about flying to India. I was already in a place. And in South Korea, they are ranked, I think, number 3 or 4 for medical tourism. They have some of the most highly trained surgeons for plastic surgeries and cosmetic procedures in the world. And so they're good. They're really good. The pricing is like between Western countries like the United States and, things like India, Turkey. It's right in the middle somewhere, depending on which clinic you go to. The price, I was like, well, I could get it done cheaper in India, but I'm already here. I don't want to travel. I speak the language. I speak Korean. It's easy for me. Another thing you have to consider about that too is after the procedure, there's follow-ups. And being local, it was much easier for me to follow up, a month later or 2 months later or a year later, follow up with my surgeon and just, get progress updates. Like, is everything going okay? Like, how is everything, developing? How's the scar healing? If you get it done in India or Turkey, how are you going to do that? You do it via Skype? It's one of those things where for my peace of mind, I wanted to be in the location where I got the surgery and I wanted to stay there. That way I can get my follow-ups done. So what does this mean for you if you're a guy who's thinking about getting a hair transplant? Do your homework. It took me over a year to, prepare myself, find the clinic, find the surgeon that I could trust, whose portfolio looks good, mentally prepare myself for this procedure. Do your homework, guys. Find a surgeon that you feel in your gut is the right one for you. You'll know it when you meet him or her. You'll just know it when you see it, because If you have any kind of uncertainties and they don't calm those or quell those uncertainties during the Q&A consultation, move on to the next one, dude. They're a dime a dozen and they want you more than you want them, okay? The power is really in your court. Also consider your age, guys. If you're in your early 20s or maybe even in mid 20s and you're thinking about getting a hair transplant, understand that it might be better to wait a few more years before getting the transplant, because guys who tend to lose their hair in the early 20s tend to have really aggressive hair loss, which means if you get the hair transplant at 23, you got your hairline built up and it's all looking good and stuff, what's going to end up happening is a few years down the line, you're going to end up losing hairs around the transplant area. And so you end up with this really pluggy look. If you've ever seen like a Cabbage Patch Kid, you look at the little hairs coming out of the head, that's what you would look like basically. Which means now you just look terrible because those hairs don't fall out. The transplanted hairs don't fall out. And you got all these bald spots around it. So now you got to go back for another transplant to fill in the thin areas around the hairs. Rather than dealing with that, wait and see what happens. Do things like finasteride and minoxidil, see what you can do. And if you can't stabilize your hair loss that way, then it might be better to just wait and let the hair loss run its course. And then once you're like, okay, I can't lose any more hairs, it's done, it's not gonna fall out anymore, then go for the consultation. The surgeon should tell you this before you get the surgery done. If they're any kind of ethical surgeon, they're not all about the dollars and dollars, and they really care about their patients, they would tell you that you probably either need to wait or you're too young. So really go with your gut when you talk about getting a hair transplant and choosing the surgeon, okay? My name is DJ from Carriage and Brotherhood. I'll see you in the next video.